Well, good evening once again. Day 14 of the Biden administration, and this day ended indeed on a somber and emotional note. As we've been reporting moments ago, President Biden left the U.S. Capitol after paying his respects with the First Lady at his side to U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, whose remains lie in honor under the rotunda. Officer Sicknick, who was also a U.S. military veteran, became only the fifth civilian in our nation's history to be afforded this honor. He was, of course, one of 5 people who died after the violent attack that looted and desecrated our very Capitol building on January 6. We are also 1 week out from the former president's second impeachment trial, this time on the charge of inciting that insurrection at the Capitol. We now know how House impeachment managers plan to make the case to convict the former president and what his own attorneys plan to offer as a defense. This morning, those House managers filed a sweeping 80-page pretrial brief that lays out in rather stark terms the events leading up to that riot that day, noting, quote, Trump's singular responsibility for that tragedy. After losing the 2020 election, President Trump refused to accept the will of the American people. He spent months asserting without evidence that he won in a landslide and that the election was stolen. President Trump announced a Save America rally on January 6. He promised it would be wild. He summoned a mob to Washington, exhorted them into a frenzy, and aimed them like a loaded cannon down Pennsylvania Avenue. So hours later, Trump's defense attorneys filed a 14-page response of their own to the House article of impeachment, which, by the way, included a typo on the cover page addressed to the U.S. Senate and misspelling the United States. Trump's lawyers asserted the Constitution, quote, requires that a person actually hold office to be impeached, and that Trump exercised his First Amendment right to express his belief that the election results were suspect. Insufficient evidence exists to conclude that the 45th president's statements were accurate or not, and he therefore denies they were false, and denied that the phrase, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore, had anything to do with the action at the Capitol, as it was clearly about the need to fight for election security. The majority of Senate Republicans agree with at least one part of this argument, that the trial is somehow unconstitutional because Trump is no longer in office. Last week, indeed, they voted to toss out the trial on those grounds, despite the fact that their chamber, some of their own desks, were ransacked. Today, their leader signaled that issue could be a deciding factor against convicting Trump.
Do you go into the impeachment trial still having an open mind about the president's conduct?
I want to listen to the arguments. The issue upon which we already voted, I think, is an interesting constitutional question. I think we ought to listen to the lawyers argue the question.
On the other side of the Capitol, the House Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, is under pressure to publicly reprimand Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon believer who spread conspiracy theories and endorsed political violence. Greene, who also has Trump's backing, met with McCarthy just tonight. McCarthy is also facing calls to punish Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney for voting to impeach Donald Trump. Cheney's in the leadership, number 3 Republican in the House. Her fate, as well as Congresswoman Greene's, will be discussed at private meetings among Republicans on Wednesday. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer moving forward on Biden's nearly $2 trillion COVID relief bill. The Senate today voted right along party lines, with Democrats edging out Republicans 50-49 to open debate on the bill. This comes just a day after Biden met with a group of Senate Republicans in the Oval Office, proposing a much smaller, they were, $600 billion measure. Today, Schumer revealed what Biden told him about that meeting.
He said that he told Senate Republicans that the $600 billion that they proposed was way too small. I think it is his belief, it is Secretary Yellen's belief, it is our belief. If we did a package that small, we'd be mired in the COVID crisis for years.
NBC News reporting the White House wants to get a relief bill passed by the 14th of March. That's the date when extended unemployment benefits run out for millions of Americans. And if necessary, they are willing to do it without Republican support.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.